Hey guys, welcome to Nerd Herd Live. We're a couple of minutes late because we're still noobs and we don't fully know what we're doing. And by that I mean me, because I am the person that's in control of going live. So
phrase now, really.
Yeah, maybe someone else should take it over. I think that's the takeaway.
Got it.
That being said, welcome everyone tonight to Nerd Herd Live. I will toss it this way to Matt. Introduce yourself.
Hello. I am Matt Rodriguez, the owner and chief editor of Shakefire.net. Jen, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I am Jen Steele. I'm a senior writer at fanbolt.com.
Robert Prentice, senior editor and manager at 3F by Space.
And that brings it back around to me, who is still trying to get a tweet live for this broadcast.
We have short intros tonight.
My Stream Deck is failing me. It just keeps doing like a caution message. So I'll deal with that later. Twitter will find out about this later. I'm Emma Loggins. I am the editor and founder of Fanbolt and the master of control. So when anything goes wrong, just blame me, because that's
we do anyway.
What we're doing tonight.
and you all heard that, so no taking that back.
That's true. No, I'll take full blame. That being said, we have some cool things to talk about tonight. We are talking about Andor, which just dropped last night on Disney Plus, the first 3 episodes. Some of us have seen the first 4 episodes, though we're not going to get into talking about the 4th episode. That is probably first on our agenda. I'm not going to tease anything or give anything.
Blame Emma for that.
Blame Emma for that. Should be our hashtag. Next up, we will talk about Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. I keep calling this accidentally Lord of the Rings, Power of the Rings, Rings of Power. Like, it's just like interchangeable to me. And I realized this.
It was embarrassing.
It could be Lord of the Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Combine them.
Kind of a before and after thing.
Yeah.
Like, yes, absolutely. Part of my embarrassment, though, is so both of our Jen and I got to sit down with Lee McPherson and John Howe and talk about, and Matt did as well, just not in the same session. So we have a set of interviews on Fanbolt, and then Matt has his interviews on Shakefire.
I'm not jealous of you 3 at all.
They were great interviews. They were really
they were
cool
a lot
people.
of fun.
But I realized when going back and transcribing my interviews that I used the show names interchangeably. So I was like, tell me about Power of the Rings. And I'm like, oh.
I didn't even notice.
I didn't either until transcribing it. And I was like,
Yeah.
I feel like Power of the Rings is just like me saying Game of Thrones or something. Like, it's a Game of Thrones like title.
Power of the Rings.
Yeah,
sounds like a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Power of the Rings.
It probably will be.
Power Rangers.
Ooh, yeah.
Power Rangers.
Rangers of Power.
They had the little belts.
I mean, we could go this all night.
That will be a viral thing at some point with a
like
crossover
Rangers of Power now,
two.
yeah.
Rangers of the Power.
Rangers.
Anyways, we're going to talk about that. And then
whatever that was, we're talking about it.
Yep.
And then we're also going to talk about, we're kind of getting into the heart of film award season and really the award contenders that are coming out. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we've seen, what we're looking forward to seeing, and kind of the big players that are coming in the cinemas before the end of the year. So that being said, we're going to kick things off with Andor. And to do that, I'm going to go to our resident Star Wars expert.
Me?
Jen. Yes, that's you.
Jen!
I'm an expert at something.
Yay!
All right, so as Emma said, last night we had the drop of Star Wars Andor, which has been highly anticipated. It takes us 5 years before the beginning before Rogue One to show the backstory of Cassian Andor, played by Diego Luna, very pretty man.
Agreed.
Okay, he's not Oscar Isaac hot yet, but he's pretty.
But he's like a close second. Like
he is.
Maybe Poe make an appearance.
I'm not gonna lie.
young
There's a
Poe.
character that I'm really hoping for season 2, because as you know, what
Is it
what,
Mads Mikkelsen? Mads
he hasn't been cast yet. I don't even know if he's going to be there, so I'm hoping. But for those of you who are a little more familiar with Star Wars, especially with the mythos that's exposed in Rebels, we know that Cassian Andor eventually becomes Fulcrum, who is one of the like spy agents for the rebellion. Another Fulcrum agent was Callus, who is a major character for Rebels. Spoiler for you guys if you haven't seen it, but the show's been out for years, so suck it up.
It's fine. It's fine.
We're geeking out full spoiler territory here.
The show's been out for years. Suck it up. Learn. So what I'm really hoping is that in the next season, which covers the final 4 years of Cassian's life, that maybe we'll get to see those two Fulcrums interact. So that's my hope.
Well, they did just cast Ezra for Ahsoka, right? I think.
Yeah, they have cast Ezra for Ahsoka. Ahsoka being the original Fulcrum agent.
Ah.
Yeah. So
it's all coming together.
It does. We may even see Ahsoka in the second season of Andor.
Really?
We'll see. But that's well, again, for the same reason
as the Fulcrum.
Alice, because she's Fulcrum. So who knows? That's a rambling introduction.
And that's why you're our expert. Because I had no idea about any of that stuff. I'm very behind on Rebels.
But yeah, so those first 3 episodes dropped all together about 2 hours last night. I watched it more than once. I'm not gonna lie. Had my sushi and Star Wars night. Honest to God, it's some of the best writing I've seen come out of a Disney Plus Star Wars series since The Mandalorian. I
want to highlight that for a second because we just basically want to say that Boba Fett was like it's.
You mean Mando 2.5? Mando 2.5.
Well, the Mando 2.5 part of it was great.
Yeah.
But
I didn't hate Kenobi, honestly. I thought Kenobi was fun.
I like Kenobi.
But Andor was just, these first 3 episodes were amazing.
Yeah, I'm enjoying Andor because it's not all so connected yet. It feels very individual, focusing on Andor. There aren't all these other cameos that are coming in and be like, oh my God, that reference. Obviously, it's going to eventually get there as it gets closer and closer to Rogue One.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen Mon Mothma in the trailer, so we know she's coming in at some point.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the, not that Obi-Wan was bad, but every series that has to tie itself to original characters from the films or original storylines is stuck with this obstacle that they get extra scrutinized anytime they do anything that is remotely off canon or questionable in the canon front. Whereas here, there's a lot more freedom. We know what happens in Rogue One. There's not been a ton of big movie film story to fill in this area other than, as you mentioned, with Clone Wars. And so they're less burdened by that.
Yeah.
And that entirely different feel where we don't have these certain guide rails or lines we won't cross being gone is everything I loved about Rogue One. And it's everything they're doing so far with Andor.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of comments online that people felt the first 3 episodes were slow, but I'll say this like I did Lord of the Rings and Rings of Power. I am a sucker for world building.
Yeah.
I appreciate having to build a world, a set of characters, some background, set things up, and then hit the ground running. And the first 3 episodes feel to me like they're now ready to dive headfirst into the rebellion, which is what I'm excited for.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like its own contained story. Like the way it's set up, where like I've even heard where it's like the first season is going to be 12 episodes, and basically it's going to be like 4 arcs. So like we've already seen this first arc of 3 episodes where it's, you know, him on the planet and then basically, you know, escaping after he's found out. So like that's the first arc. Then, you know, 4, 5, and 6 are going to go into the next arc of, we won't get into that yet, but you know, it looks like it's setting up these individual little arcs, like almost mini movies, as you will. And I think that's so far been really interesting.
To what Robert was saying earlier, there already is some fussing in the fandom, which I know is very surprising, being that it's the Star Wars fandom.
No, really?
That people are really harping on one line from Rogue One, in which Cassian says that he's been in this fight since he was 6 years old. And it doesn't look like that's been the case, but frankly, I think they're filling that out really well myself. So,
you know,
I mean, it kind of seems like that's the case. Almost.
Yeah, like it depends on how you define the fight. You know?
Right?
Yeah.
Like there, you see his tribe, Kendari, I believe it was.
Kendari, yeah.
And they're on this planet. Clearly, the older children of the group go on these hunts, and they go after these ships that crash, or there's been mining on their planet. It's clear that there's been this tense between the Empire and them since he was really little. So I think that still holds up versus them taking it so literally that it has to be the rebellion versus being against the Empire since day one.
Well, I mean, when Cassian was 6 years old, the rebellion didn't exist.
Right.
You know, that it wasn't a thing yet. I'm not even entirely sure. I'd have to do the math. I'm not even entirely sure that the Empire existed yet. If he was only 6 years old. Because I think it's only maybe 19 years between the end of the Clone Wars and A New Hope. Maybe, I'm not sure.
Come on, Jen. You're
I
our
know!
expert.
You're our expert here
to know everything. Because if any of the Star Wars fans are watching this, they are gonna jump on you.
I know they're gonna tell me about it,
and we will blame Emma.
Yeah,
because that is what we do.
Also, another reason to blame Emma. I realized we weren't live on Facebook. We are now. So.
Oh, good.
Well, welcome, Facebook fans.
Yeah. I had to reset my Facebook password, and I didn't think about that logging into StreamYard tonight. And then I was like, only 2 things look like they're active. All right, that's all good. Blame Emma.
But another thing, going back to the whole, you know, origins of being Kenari and, you know, on the planet, I loved the way it cut back and forth between, you know, his past and now, and like the fact that they didn't use subtitles for when they're speaking in Kenari. I honestly love that. I know, probably Emma, I can see your face right now. It's probably going to annoy some people.
So
yes,
I also have feelings on this, but Emma, you had strong feelings.
You had strong feelings.
I did. Well, it's one thing when you have a shorter scene where it can just be implied. And some of these scenes were shorter. It could be implied. You could take away what was happening in the scene. There were some longer scenes in which I felt like if we had the context of what the subtitles would have been, it would have been more helpful for the viewers.
I don't know. I think I respectfully disagree, because I felt like all the scenes that they've showed work well on their own, whether they spoke or not. Like, you could easily understand what was going on. Like, sure, you don't know the exact words they're saying, but I felt like you know exactly what's going on, and you know how he's feeling by the way like he's being portrayed, and how basically like he's the runt of the litter, and he's just following along, being like, hey, I want to be included.
I will say this, like it did bother me initially, because I was like, I want to know what they're saying. But then when I thought back, as I was reading some other people talking about it, and they're like, we don't see what R2-D2 says or what Wookiees say,
but we know.
It's a Star Wars thing. They've done it before.
Yeah.
This isn't new. I do think that generally speaking, in those scenes, the general idea of what they wanted us to understand was understood. even if what they were saying was more or less, gibberish in the scheme of things. I would still be interested in talking with the behind the scenes people to know what were they actually saying, if anything, at all in those scenes.
Well, they had to be because Jen and I have interviewed some experts in nerd culture, other languages, as well as Matt.
Did she? Maybe she worked on.
I don't think she did.
I don't think she did.
That would be cool.
Because I feel like because she nerded out over Jen's shirt, and I feel
which I'm actually wearing tonight. So
nice.
That was totally not planned. That was totally not planned by Jen, by the way. Totally.
Well,
I don't know. I think it might have been planned for the interview.
It was not planned for the. Well, okay.
You're like, I'm gonna silently tell her we have common interests.
Look, I'm wearing a different language on my shirt. It's a conlang, kind of ish. It's a transliteration. That's
Jen, bringing the nerd to Nerd Herd Live.
Damn straight.
I do think that's an interesting conversation, though, and it'll be interesting to see if it ever kind of comes up in terms of what they were saying or.
I mean, I imagine as big a fandom, as big a universe Star Wars is, that they did, create a language and have actual an English translation to what they were saying and stuff.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because fans are rabid and they will decipher every little detail of it and they will figure it out on their own.
I am interested to know how developed the Canary conlang is.
Well, maybe we'll get an interview
more
opportunity for someone in that field.
Hint Disney.
Hint Disney. I'll drop them an email and be like, hey, we interview language experts from shows. I'm actually writing myself about this right now because I think this would be really interesting.
We want to talk to people about things in other languages.
Yes.
Who crafted the Canary language? Reach out to us, Disney.
Man, I would love that.
I mean, that's a really interesting conversation too, because when we had the Lord of the Rings conversation, which we're kind of going into as our next topic, that was a language that, granted, has been more filled out over the years, but did pre-exist. Whereas in the Star Wars universe, this specifically is a new language, right? So I find that really interesting. How far do you dive into building something out? What are your criteria for doing that? How far do you go? Mm-hmm. How does that get lined up for other people that are coming to work inside of that outline moving forward? It is just kind of an interesting technical conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would think especially with something like Canary, where as far as we know, it's only being used in these 3 episodes. Because they seem to have kind of wrapped up his time on the planet.
Yeah.
By the end of the 3rd episode. I would think that, I don't know, maybe you just put together a couple of grammatical rules that are specific to what you need to have in the scene, just so you can have some kind of internal consistency. Yeah. But then from there, it's not going to be nearly as fleshed out as language.
Elvish, sure.
Well, yeah. Well, also Tolkien was a linguist, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole nother level.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's that was part of the fun that Tolkien was having writing the books.
I think
create languages.
I think it's that's why he created the books. Where he's because I have these languages. It's I guess I need to use them, so I'm going to write these books.
Yeah,
and then he created the Lord of the Rings and everything.
Yeah, would not surprise me.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is an excellent transition into Rings of Power, House of Dragon. It's the plural order of Dragon of House. Guys, I've been
just remember, there was more than one ring and more than one dragon, so they're both plural.
Actually, no, House of Dragon is singular. It's not hot D's. It's got D.
Not on this channel
I
anyway.
don't know. Based on
Oh
that
my
last
God.
episode, there were a whole lot of D's going on. But anyways,
There were a whole lot of D's going on, but no, okay, so Rings of Power. Oh, someone just liked something that we just did. I love seeing the real-time feedback.
The Rings of Power.
Thank you for whoever just liked this conversation.
Other than us.
That being said, I'm going to toss
Like
it to Matt to give our Lord of the Rings intro for Rings of
All
Power.
right. So, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is the proper
That is the
title
correct name.
of the show. It's now streaming on Amazon Prime, and it streams every Friday. There's a new episode added every Friday. And the premise is set, it's thousands of years before The Hobbit, before The Lord of the Rings. And it's based on the history of Middle Earth during the Second Age.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially it follows the main character is Galadriel, who we all know, who is a young elven warrior who is basically coming back to Middle Earth to hunt Sauron. And it's her crossing paths. Elrond is in it. And those are pretty much the two main characters that fans of the films are going to recognize. Obviously, if you've read the books, you're going to know a lot more about this history. But it's basically elves, men, hobbits who are called Harfoots in this era. And they're all the stories during the Second Age of Middle Earth, and basically the rise of Sauron as he gains power and eventually will build the One Ring and the various other rings that he gives to the elves, the men, and the dwarves. So that's the show.
Yay!
And it's done.
Yeah, a couple of characters too that
he makes some rings.
There were a couple of characters we never saw in the films, but whose names we know.
Yeah.
Like Isildur.
Isildur, yeah.
Who else was there?
They mentioned Celebrimbor, didn't they?
Did they mention him?
I thought so.
I want to say
maybe.
It was
Probably.
one of Galadriel's flashbacks as she was talking about the rings. I want to say she might have shown or spoke about him at one point. I'm trying to think who else. That might be it so far, because there's still a lot of unknown on certain characters, like our mystery man who crashed down. We don't
I feel
know.
okay, who do we think that is? So in the first episode, we're what, 4 or 5 episodes in now?
4.
I think
4 episodes.
Or the 5th episode is
drops tomorrow.
Yeah.
That was sorry.
But who do we think the stranger, as he's called in the show, is? What are our theories? Because it hasn't been revealed, and he's this old wizard man who falls in a meteor that one of the Harfoots stumbles upon.
I think a lot of people initially thought it was Gandalf, but I was like, it's too obvious, right?
It's too on the nose to be Gandalf.
It is, and it's also the timelines don't mesh up, but there are a lot of other factors in play that kind of negate timelines.
True.
And yes.
It doesn't have to be book accurate.
Well, it doesn't have to be book accurate, but also an important thing to mention here is, and this is why a lot of fans are pissed off about what they're seeing, is that Amazon only bought the rights to Lord of the Rings. So the 3 books, if it's not mentioned or referenced inside of the 3 books, they can't use it. So what that means is a earlier book cannot be referenced. I will let Jen talk about the earlier book.
Which book is that?
It who shall not be named.
It who shall not be named.
It should be named, just might not be pronounced.
Well, that's a fair point too.
It shall not be named correctly.
Shall not be named correctly. That's the Silmarillion.
And I mean, I wonder. I mean, the timelines don't mesh up, and yes, they're having to make some changes. I want to hope that one feels too drastic for them to make, because he's such an obvious character from the original films. I've done a little online digging, which is never a good thing. And I will mispronounce the name of the race that him and his fellow wizards are from. And Jen will be able to pronounce it for me in a minute.
Jen's got you. You're fine.
But I do believe that this person is a member of that race, not necessarily Gandalf.
You're not going to say it?
I don't even. I think it starts with an M.
Maya.
Okay.
Come on, Robert. That one was really
Maia.
Oh, the Maya. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
he's where the Maya.
Simpler to pronounce than I thought. Because in the digging there were references that in the Second Age and in the book that we can all mispronounce, which is more like an encyclopedia than a full-blown
Bible
story. There were references to the Maya showing up throughout the Second Age, sort of behind the scenes. So, everything he's done so far hasn't directly influenced anything on the main storyline.
I think I'm just going to come out and say it. I think he's going to turn into the Balrog.
You think?
That is, yeah. I think he's going to be turning into the Balrog.
That's very interesting.
I definitely think he's an evil guy.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think he's good.
Well, so for those that are not familiar with where you're going, perhaps we should talk about why we think he could turn into a Balrog and what the Balrogs were before they turned into those creatures.
Well, so the Balrogs are Maiar.
Yeah.
So that goes well with your theory, Robert, that he is a Maiar, which is the same as Gandalf. And I think in Tolkien's original works, he actually described the Maiar or the Balrogs as having a human form, but cloaked in shadow and stuff. And it's just in people's interpretations that they've kind of evolved into these, big demon monster creatures with wings and stuff. I know there have been so many conversations and arguments over whether or not they actually had wings. So stuff people really go in depth and hard about these subjects. So
yeah, and a
lot is up for debate.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I've watched episode 5, got the screener Tuesday, without spoiling anything. Some of the theory you're talking about, Matt, is actually going to get explained a bit in the upcoming episode that may in fact lend itself to what you're suggesting. And it that actually may be the case.
I haven't seen episode 5 yet.
Is it midnight?
It's not midnight yet.
But so the way I see it is, he arrives in this meteor. He comes to the Hartford territory, and one of the first scenes we see with him is where the young hobbit girl, I forget her name, but she stumbles upon the meteor wreckage and everything. And everything is still on fire, everything's still burning, but she doesn't get burned. And she specifically mentions how it's not hot. She doesn't feel any heat. And in the first episode, at the beginning of the first episode, you have the elves, they're exploring the territory and everything. And Galadriel makes a specific reference when they come across one of Sauron's little hideout places that their torches aren't producing any heat. And they're oh, that's because this place is so evil that it's the heat doesn't do anything or something. But anyway, it makes a reference to oh, this is evil, so we can't feel heat. So that immediately makes me think, okay, this guy is evil.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we've also now revealed Mithril.
Yeah.
And we know they're digging deep into the is
the
it
Mines of Moria?
Is it Mines of Moria or Khazad-dûm? Yeah, Khazad-dûm.
I mean, it's the same place.
Yeah. And so we know eventually what happened in Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah. That the Balrog is down
there. Is there, right. So it feels like all of that plus some backstory that we learn in episode 5. I'm going to lean towards Matt's theory being the run ahead winner at this point, based on everything that we're seeing, which I think would calm some people down a little bit versus it being Gandalf, which would just be way out of line.
And we
with
know
the rest of the story.
the Balrog is in the show because they've teased it in the teasers.
Correct.
They've shown it briefly.
Yep.
No context, but so we know there is a Balrog. But I mean, I think my whole theory about the show in general is that it's basically it's going to be like the anti-Lord of the Rings. So, and this deals with the stranger and the Balrog being evil and stuff. And basically, in the Lord of the Rings, it's the hobbits who save the day. They save Middle Earth and everything. They destroy their own ring. In here, it's going to be the hobbits or the Harfoots who basically doom everybody because their area, this Southlands is basically Mordor.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the maps, the area is Mordor. So they live in Mordor before it's Mordor. And basically, I feel like this hobbit, this Harfoot, helping out this stranger guy, figure out who he is and basically guide him wherever he's going and stuff. She thinks she's helping him and being all good and stuff, but ultimately she's going to end up dooming everybody because he's going to be this big evil guy. And then also we have on the other side, we have Halbrand, who's this new character who isn't a part of the novels that anybody really knows. And he's this guy who definitely has, some kind of secret backstory that they haven't fully revealed. Like he's basically Aragorn, where he's like this, he comes from this kingly line of kings. And he's supposed to unite the people. And I have a feeling he's like, I don't think he's Sauron. I know I've seen theories of people of him being Sauron. I do think he's evil though, and that he's going to end up being like the Witch King. Ultimately, he's going to be like the leader of the Nazguls and all them.
So he would be the recipient of one of the rings of men.
Because I have a feeling he's going to eventually come to lead Numenor and be their king. But he's going to get corrupted by the ring and all that and eventually become the Nazgul. And he's going to unite Mordor's armies, so-called. So instead of uniting men against Sauron and Mordor, he's going to unite Mordor against men and stuff. So it's basically going to be the anti-Lord of the Rings. So all the Lord of the Rings characters, it's kind of flipping everything and being like, hey, we're all Team Sauron now.
Well, it's interesting because allegedly, it isn't allegedly. The story is that Sauron, in his various forms, worked with the elves to forge the rings. And so, they willingly forged these rings and you had everybody using them and then, they were tricked. So at some point, we're going to find them together forging these rings. And so Halbrand is one of a couple of new non-canon characters that everybody's been trying to guess who is Sauron and what form is he in right now. Is it Halbrand? Is it Theo? Because Theo and his mom are also original characters for the series. He
has the hilt.
He has the hilt. There's just a lot of. I honestly can't say that we've seen Sauron yet. I don't think that we have.
I think we do know that he's already working behind the scenes because they're already creating the hearth in which the rings are going to be forged.
Right.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, there's also what's his name, the corrupted elf guy who is with the orcs.
Oh, right. I don't know his real name. We just know him as Father.
Father and elf. Yeah. Adar.
Adar. Yeah. So that guy too, and it's like.
Which is interesting to understand the backstory behind what orcs were originally. And without overcomplicating it, there were a group of elves that didn't get taken back with the rest of the high elves and were left behind. And those elves ended up turning to darkness. And essentially that's him and the first form of orcs that ultimately came to be. So that's kind of that was interesting. And I also kind of kicked myself for not realizing sooner until they literally spelled it out on the screen that the Southlands was Mordor. I felt kind of stupid not catching that. But when they finally revealed it, I'm like, oh, well, that was kind of obvious. But
the the mark of Sauron is the map.
Yeah, it's actually the map.
God.
She was right, though. It was telling the orcs where to go, quite literally.
Yeah.
So
this is where I will build my tower.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very invested in it. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. It's
Same
definitely
here.
my go-to watch each week. One of several.
I was about to say right now, like we have so much every week.
Watch.
It's like we got Lord of the Rings, we got House of the Dragon, we got Andor, we got She-Hulk.
Just watch that.
We now have Great British Bake Off. High five!
Yeah, we
again.
do.
I feel like I'm the lone person here watching Handmaid's Tale, which has returned.
That's returned.
Yeah.
I'm still so behind. I've seen like 3 episodes.
That feels like a series
like
that's
season
too
1.
emotionally damaging to tune into.
It's hard to watch. But it is like fantastic acting and
if you need another recommendation for a show that's like that might be anime, I have. Yes, I have. If you're willing to watch Handmaid's Tale,
oh my god,
you would be fine.
Compare then.
Yes, I can.
For context, for our viewers who have not been friends with Robert for many years.
He's constantly trying to convince us to watch this anime that will like destroy us or emotionally destroy us, or all of the many ways he's phrased it over the years.
Yep.
So
for everybody's reference that might be wondering what that show is, it's called To Your Eternity. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
But it's good.
It's on HBO Max, I believe.
It is.
So, I don't think any of us. He hasn't convinced any of us to watch it yet.
If you want to cry,
it well.
Yeah, he doesn't sell it well at all. He's like, if you want to be emotionally destroyed, you should watch the show.
Sometimes but you're watching Handmaid's Tale, so come on.
Well, no, I'm watching it alone. Oh,
thank you, Ethel. Thank you.
Props to you, Ethel.
Godspeed,
you are better than us.
If Ethel tells me I should watch it, I will watch it.
Uh-oh.
You'll
so
take
Ethel, the future of this lies in your hands. Because I don't trust Robert.
Oh, wow. No. Okay.
Ouch.
Not on this. I mean, you've been talking about it for years. Just saying.
All right.
Never steered you wrong. And Thor says that what you call it was Interstellar was
We're not diving into an interstellar conversation right now. That is not on the docket.
One day.
That should be another.
That's
another
episode
in and of itself.
Bonus episode. Emma does not geek out over
We'll air on a Tuesday for that one or something.
No, I have some hardcore problems with it. That is not the topic for tonight. We will talk about that another night. That being said, though.
Speaking of movies,
exactly.
Boom.
Smooth segue.
We will transition into our fall film preview, which is basically going to consist of movies we've already seen that are coming out in the fall, which means essentially after yesterday, because yesterday was the official start of fall, I think.
Was
it
today?
the
first day of fall?
It actually started at 9:04, so it was literally like 35 minutes ago.
Oh.
All right. So that's fine. Maybe it's not been released yet.
Before we move on, speaking of today, it is actually National Hobbit Day.
Oh,
you didn't know, so because it's Bilbo's birthday, September 22nd.
I should have had so many more meals today.
Happy birthday, Bilbo!
You need to have second dinner now.
I know.
Exactly.
I should have had second breakfast and 11sies. I mean, you could still have 11sies.
Second drink.
At night.
Second drink.
Third tea,
fourth tea.
Cheers, Bilbo. But yeah, moving on to movies now.
Moving on to movies. I'm going to kind of start this conversation with movies we have seen that have yet to come out, and then we'll kind of dive into the ones that are coming out. I think the first fall movie that at least Matt and I have seen, which comes out, I guess it was today. It was the 22nd, right? Don't Worry, Darling.
Don't Worry, Darling.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't Worry, Darling.
So on a scale of 1 to real life drama, how does the film compare?
Oh God, nothing compares to the real life drama of the movie.
No.
I want a documentary so bad.
I have
know.
relayed that to a person I may or may not know that may or may not be working on the DVD release. I'm like, you know what will sell this film? Which
Behind the
they
scenes.
will never do that. But
Yeah.
I feel like if they found a way, like it's an interesting conversation, right? Like, you know, like everyone that is on this film junket, the studios, everyone knows that the reason people are gonna go see this movie for two reasons. Harry Styles is the first reason, right? The rabid fan base that he has. And the second reason is all of the freaking drama around this like press tour. Like that has gotten so much coverage over the last couple of weeks. And it's like, if you want to support a DVD release, if you can somehow get people on the same page for the DVD release, because everyone, but like that, it would be so good, right? Like even if you can just have like Harry Styles be like, I didn't spit on Chris Evans, and like have or Chris Pine, and have that be a conversation. Wrong, Chris, my bad. But like have fun with it. Do something. Make fun of yourselves. Like make light of the situation. Like
I mean, Harry Styles did kind of make light of it. Like he came to a concert and was like, "Oh yeah, I went to Venice to spit on Chris Pine."
Well,
at
he
one
said
of his
that.
concerts afterwards.
But like, what actually
in a
happened?
joking
We saw
way.
the videos, right?
I mean, they've said he didn't. He said he officially, an official like comment that he didn't do it.
He
and
didn't.
As did Chris Pine.
that he didn't. Yeah.
What was Chris Pine
even
looking
Chris Pine
down
said
at?
didn't. I don't know.
I need like a more like specific,
like a
play-by-play of what actually happened.
dissection of the video.
Yes, that's what I need.
Maybe
I will not get that.
I mean, yeah,
they will not release that.
I mean, maybe in 10 years' time, we will find out the official story of everything that went down on set and everything. But until then, it's all in our mind.
It is. And for the buildup that was everything we have seen over the last few weeks, you go into the movie, I feel like, with elevated expectations, and it does not live up to the hype around it. It is a very interesting concept. Not a new concept, but an interesting concept.
Florence Pugh is the best thing about the film.
She's amazing. Yeah.
And it's like, I like Olivia Wilde as a director. Like she did, like Booksmart is an amazing and hilarious film. So like, I was excited to see like, okay, what is she going to do with this? And like, it looked interesting from the trailers and stuff, but I mean, it falls flat. Like it doesn't go deep enough. It doesn't go hard enough. And it's just like, okay.
And then it does some stuff it doesn't need to do either. Like where it ended versus where it should have ended, plus what maybe the final scene should have been. Like all of these things, I feel like the editing on it probably should have been, for me to appreciate it, it should have been something different. It ends up feeling like you threw a bunch of stuff in a pot, and there's some good stuff, but like it just doesn't come out in a way that feels like a good movie. Yeah. It's not bad.
No.
But it's not great.
It's meh.
It's meh.
Yeah.
It's meh. Meh.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Darling.
Darling.
Oh.
Wow. Okay, Doug.
Worked perfectly. High five. So that being said, we'll go into the next movie, which I think is. So we're I don't know which comes out first. I think Rose comes out first.
Blonde comes out first. I think Blonde comes out. Blonde comes out, I believe, the 26th.
Okay, because Bros is the 30th.
Yeah, Bros is the end of the month.
Okay. So let's talk about Blonde next.
I mean, it's already out in theaters, I believe. Limited release.
Limited release.
Limited release as of the 16th.
Yeah.
So released on Netflix on the 28th.
28th. So.
We saw Matt and Robert and I saw this last week in theaters. Netflix basically, it's an interesting dynamic because any streaming platform that wants to be eligible for award season, to be eligible for the Oscars, has to show their film for a period of 7 days in theater. And as a part of that, they also screen it for press. So that's why you get these super limited runs of films in New York and LA that don't necessarily like, you're like, why is this film playing in New York for 7 days and then it's going to be on Netflix the day after? This is why they want it to be eligible for award season. That being said, we all had some very interesting feelings on Blonde.
It's like Robert's anime.
It's like Robert's anime
that you've never watched.
No,
if you
but the
want
way
to be
you describe
really
it, like
depressed.
it's depressing and it's sad and it's brutal. Like, so the film it's a fictionalized, like, we have to emphasize it's based on a fiction book. So it's not a real life story about Marilyn Monroe. It's
Parts
based on
are real.
Parts are real. Like it takes very, very vast liberties with Marilyn Monroe's life, and it's based on the book Blonde, and it
was unauthorized, as I recall.
Yeah, I'm not sure like the legalities of it all and stuff,
Yeah.
like with the characters and stuff,
conversation.
and like how they get around. Because like I know for some of the things they don't mention people's names a lot.
Yeah,
A lot of it is like, we're going to tell you all these details about this person who you can easily identify, but we're not going to actually say his name.
Right.
So,
but I mean, it's pretty obvious. Like, I remember we were kind of like all sitting, in the lobby before we went in to see it. And like a few of our critic friends had read the book and they were talking about how in the book they didn't mention Arthur Miller. And then there was a couple of other people that they mentioned like the person, but they referred to them as like the artist or the writer or like, just
The
using
athlete.
kind of obscure, the athlete. They didn't use names.
Yeah.
But in the film, they actually did use names.
Some of them. It's like Joe DiMaggio was never named.
True, but Arthur Miller was.
But Arthur Miller was. Yeah.
And I don't know if they ever said, like they said the president. I don't know if they ever said John F. Kennedy.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
But
so it's like you wonder like how far, and like I don't know. I guess I'm sure the movie has more legal standing since it's based off a book, as opposed to like I don't know what kind of legal standing the book had and stuff. And it's like I don't know. But anyway, it's a fictionalized story.
Yeah.
And it's a hard watch. It's a brutal watch.
There was nothing
because
like
there's
happy
nothing
about her life.
Good, that happens to Marilyn Monroe, and it's just one tragic event after another. And it's basically a 3-hour movie. It's a long movie.
2 hours and 55 minutes.
And it's in rare air in that it's rated NC-17.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, yeah, I could definitely see that, but it's not gratuitous, I would say. Like there are a lot of like uncomfortable scenes and stuff.
I think there was one or two scenes that just edged it over to NC-17 because there was a lot of other stuff on that we've seen on many other movies that have gotten it nowhere near an NC-17.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what I was interested in. Like, I feel like this is kind of weird territory to be talking about, like what makes something like fall
NC-17
into
versus
NC-17.
R. And
right. And especially in like the sexual context. So like there is a rape scene in the beginning of it. And the way it was described when I was reading about like why it was rated NC-17, I expected a very graphic rape scene. I will say Hot D, House of Dragon, like Game of Thrones. Granted, I think everything has actually been consensual thus far on.
Shockingly enough,
Hot
so
D,
far, yes.
to date.
Yeah.
But like Game of Thrones style, right? Like that's what I expected, something on caliber with that. And it was not done like that. Like, it was done in a way where it was implied, but it wasn't like, we are showing you more than you need to see. Like, it was implied, and that was pretty much it. You don't, it wasn't like the caliber of like NC-17 to me. I've seen R-rated films that have gone further with that than that did.
Yeah.
I think what got them is there are, like, Marilyn Monroe supposedly had a number of abortions, and they go into that in the film. Again, there's so much fictionalization, and I haven't thoroughly researched her life, so I don't know what is supposedly like real versus fictionalized versus, you know, them taking liberties, whatever. They do show like an uncomfortable shot from what would or would not be like a baby's perspective.
Yeah.
So like, I feel
From
From it is like from an inside perspective, basically out. But aside from that, I will say the film itself is like, there's a lot of nudity in the film, but not NC-17 normal nudity, right?
Yeah. I think it's just because it's a lot, maybe?
It is a lot. I don't know.
I'm sure, we don't know. We don't know the exact MPAA
I have a
qualifications.
I have a feeling that the scene,
like what puts it overboard,
with the president and the baby scene were probably the two things that ended up pushing it over.
I just feel like I've seen a lot of rated R movies that I felt like pushed the bar further than this did in terms of that type of content.
Yeah.
And maybe that was stuff that was rated R that wasn't rated the way it should have been. I don't know. I was like, I went in expecting something way more graphic than what I saw.
But
that being said, it was still graphic, and a lot of stuff was implied. So
yeah.
I mean, it is a sad story, fictionalized as it may be, of her life. So I mean, if you're fascinated by her life story, just remember going into it that it is heavily fictionalized. It does, of course, take popular elements that we know to be factual about things that she did, her life, career. But, you know, I think the part that really stood out as kind of weird was this sort of way that they played it out as her always being in like this drug-induced haze all the time. And it just played off as like in a completely different world throughout the entire film. And it was hard to tell, when was she imagining things versus are we looking at reality of what's happening? And that's an artistic choice in the filmmaking.
They take a lot of weird artistic choices because like the film is constantly shifting aspect ratios. It's going from color to black and white, and there's not really a consistency to it. Like, you know, some films like say shoot certain scenes in black and white versus color to do like, oh, maybe this stuff is happening in the real world versus this stuff is like in a dream world, but there's no consistency with Blonde. I could discern, at least, where like they just kind of change things scene by scene based on, I guess, whatever they thought looked cool or something. And that was the most, I guess, distracting and kind of weird thing about the film to me.
And we've seen that kind of tactic of black and white to color numerous times as of late. Like most recently, I remember like Belfast, right? We
Belfast
saw it in
had
Belfast.
that.
But I think it worked much better.
It worked in Belfast.
Oh, it worked much better in Belfast. But like I feel like initially what I thought was like it was the difference between like happiness and sad, right? So like when you see moments of hope or happiness, it'd be in color. But that didn't always hold true. And to your point, Matt, about the aspect ratio, I never understood what they were trying to do with that. Like I couldn't make like why are we
because there were like 3 or 4 different aspect ratios that it would change constantly, and it was just all willy-nilly, and just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And like
it was
looks
very odd.
it looks beautiful, like individual scenes and stuff look great and fantastic, but like on a whole it just doesn't come together.
Yeah.
But I mean, Ana de Armas is amazing in it. She is fantastic. Her performance is great.
She will be nominated.
And like, she's definitely going to get nominated.
She absolutely will. There were a few times, and I don't know if Matt caught this. I know Emma did. There were a few times that her accent slipped in the film that you could tell. But for the most part,
she pretty much keeps her accent. That's the thing.
She does, but she changes.
She's not really going for like a one-on-one Maryland American accent. She still kind of has her like Cuban accent.
Yeah, there's a few times that it stands out a little bit more than in other spots where you can tell. But I do think that for everything that we've seen thus far, so let's phrase it that way, because who knows what else we'll get before voting. From what we've seen thus far, she's absolutely in the top for award contention for the role, regardless of the rest of it.
She is. I wouldn't recommend this movie to anyone, though. It's just not a good or easy watch. And I think even if you're a fan of her, I would be interested to hear like someone that is a fan of Marilyn Monroe, like their take on this, because legally, like none of us understand how you make a fictionalized movie about a real person and how does that happen? Like how the legalities of like someone owning an estate versus all these other people's names and people that are being like, the Kennedys are going to be livid about this film.
Well, and I know
like, how do they not get sued? Like, that's a great question.
There is. With famous people, there are certain rules around the ability to do, like, I don't want to say impersonations, but characterizations, and it's legal because they have this stance as being such a
in the public sphere.
in the public sphere.
What is that line?
Well,
we don't know.
I think we saw the line with the names that did and did not get mentioned. And there's obviously something there. The fact that they didn't explicitly name the president, they obviously
said the president. Like,
okay,
it's like we know who it is.
Right? Yeah, I mean, we know who all the characters are.
But think about this: the estate can't sue if they don't say him by name. So
who knows?
I don't know.
I mean, that's my guess, but.
If we have any lawyers watching,
we would love your on the record.
Love your input, especially once you see Blonde.
I'm just ready for us as a culture to let this poor woman rest in peace. I mean, this movie was frankly entirely unnecessary. Like I'm not planning on seeing it because I think it's exploitative, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and coming out of it, I don't feel like there was any value to be gained in understanding her life, her career, or anything after it.
But especially not considering it's also fictionalized.
Yeah.
So like you're not honoring her by adding drama on top of it.
No, I mean, this movie was created to make a quick buck off of her story and sensationalizing it even more than it's already been sensationalized. And by throwing the NC-17 rating to sexualize her even more than she's been sexualized.
Yeah.
I not to keep dumping on it, but I hate the concept of this movie.
And again, it's sad that we could say that a Game of Thrones show comes across as higher ground than Blonde.
Yeah.
And that's saying something, frankly.
Yeah. Well, on that note, moving along to something slightly happier. Rose.
Rose was fun.
Rose was fun.
I thought it was.
We all saw that.
We all saw that. I guess it was also last week. Time flies.
It does.
It does.
some of us hopefully
comes out next Friday.
Mm-hmm.
It comes out next Friday. It comes out on the 30th. Hoping you don't see me on TV talking about this movie, but I feel like you may see this one down here. You may
Jen?
see Jen.
Me?
I feel, but she did a much better job at so they did kind of like an on the street kind of like review thing after we got out of the film, and I just like had total brain farts. I was just like can't operate.
Did you call it by the right title?
I mispronounced the title.
I said bros correctly, so they do have that soundbite from me. But I feel like Jen was like way better with like her like critique. I was just like, it was great. like my review of it was terrible, but it is
a really fun movie. It's a good romantic comedy. It follows a lot of the same tropes.
It does,
but it's not bothersome in any way, and it's fun, and it's heartwarming, and just a good, solid film. And the song at the end, I love the song at the end that it has. Like I feel like that's in the Oscar contention for like best original song. Yeah,
could be.
I hope so. I would love to see that performed on stage at the Oscars by Billy Eichner. Like, make it happen.
I think Billy Eichner was like the main reason that a lot of us kind of like went into this with like skepticism, because like he is potentially entertaining in very small doses, but like a whole movie of him is like a lot.
I don't know. I've binged watched Billy on the Street. Like multiple episodes, so like I could take pretty big dose of him.
You can take it.
I'll admit he was probably my favorite part of the movie. I mean, I love.
He was great in this.
Yeah, he was fun.
But
I
would my least favorite part.
I would say I'm saying
he can be over the top and extreme.
He can be. Yeah. And I feel like that is a lot of that is or will be a lot of people's kind of hesitation going into this, right? Mm-hmm. But I will say, as someone that has found him over the top at points, like I found some of his on the street stuff like really good, and then I found some of it like way too much. But I really enjoyed this. I feel like the writers of this and the producers and kind of the overall feel of this is very in line with like Bridesmaids and Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And it is like one of those types of movies. So if you enjoy that style of kind of romantic comedy, you will enjoy Bros. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about, I mean,
we all concur.
Like, frankly, those weren't quite my genre of rom-com, but I still love the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't fit my genre either. But
did you guys all hate Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Bridesmaids? Is that why you guys?
I love both of those. I love both of those.
I mean, I liked Bridesmaids. It's been forever since I've seen Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
We need a Dracula puppet musical.
We do need a Dracula puppet
Jason
musical.
Segel, if you're watching, please make the Dracula puppet musical.
That should be its own film.
I mean, exactly. what I'll say about Bros is it's nice that this is a film that was able to tell, where the director is telling a story that is close to him. There being the LGBT community is able to sort of do their own rom-com for themselves, which is unique in Hollywood. I do feel like it did fall into some of the tropes that they hate, that the typical like hetero white person would normally do for their characters, but they did it intentionally to prove a point in the story, and it comes across as genuine. Yeah. Which is where I think people will appreciate the story, right? It's not there are a couple contentious scenes that I think in the current atmosphere are going to drive a lot of conversation, and I'm talking about the dinner scene with Mom. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, the film does not try to push things onto other people. They just try to be themselves. Right. So that comes across as very genuine and true in the film. And it's going to reach an audience that has otherwise been underserved in movies.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
So
I will say that I found it really refreshing and cool that we had what feels like a mainstream film dealing with the like gay relationships. Like that was, I felt like really, really well done. And like it's something that you can appreciate, like movie fans can appreciate, but I also feel like in and of itself, it was just really
it treated like any normal other relationship.
Exactly.
It wasn't this secret thing. It wasn't this taboo, or it was just.
Well, and it also
it's a romantic comedy first and
it also made it clear. It also made it clear that their relationships are not the same as hetero relationships, and that's the point. They're not going to be the same. They shouldn't be the same. They are what they are for them, and they drive that home with the film, which again is where I think it's going to really reach out to that community more, because it's not a different group's fictionalization of what they think those relationships are or should be.
Yeah.
And they went with what they really are. They're awkward. They're weird. They're uncomfortable. I hate to break it to people. Regular hetero relationships, any relationship is awkward. It can be weird. I mean, I'm single, so I don't have a lot of room to talk in this space. But no relationship is simple and without confrontation or complexity, and it's different for everybody. And this drives that home in a lot of different
Jen
ways.
and Andor.
Then the relationship is straightforward.
Just boom.
Just saying.
Well, those are movies that we've all seen that are coming out are
soon.
Super soon in the next week. There are a few that I think that we're really excited to see, and I just kind of want to like quickly go through some of them. We are seeing Amsterdam on next Thursday. We will have seen that one before our next podcast, which is one of the fall's most anticipated films. The cast is amazing. High expectations for that one.
Is that the one with Brad Pitt?
No.
Christian Bale. Okay, because there's another one.
Margot Robbie's and everything, which is probably what's confusing you.
Yeah. Well, because there's two films. There's Amsterdam, and then there's one other one-name one that's coming out this fall.
Babylon.
Babylon. Yeah,
Babylon. Yeah. Babylon's not coming out this fall. It's coming out January 6th.
This winter. Or December 25th in some places.
Well, that's purely for like awards
for
season.
Oscars. Yeah.
For Oscars. Yeah.
So we will probably see it before.
We will see it before, and I'm
excited. It's Damien Chazelle who did La La Land and Whiplash, First Man. So it's got Margot Robbie,
Brad Pitt, bunch of other people.
It looks exciting. That's a winter movie, really though.
Good. It is a winter movie. We will put that in our winter movie teaser category. But as far as other fall movies, for me, I'm gonna go down a list. Hocus Pocus 2. Which is next week.
Yeah.
Is it next week?
It is next week.
Oh damn.
Yep. I keep looking at my email every day and I'm like, hey, Disney, how about that screener? It has not come through yet, but fingers crossed. Of course, we have Avatar 2, I guess would also be considered a winter film. Black Panther 2, that is a fall film. So that will be
I can't wait for Namor.
That's going to be exciting. Brand new I guess superhero or villain.
Just kind of anti-hero.
Anti-hero, yeah. But his background, his character's ethnicity is Latino.
Yeah.
So that's huge.
I don't know how to I cannot say his name properly. Tenohuerta is his last name is Huerta, but I can't say his first name, so I'm sorry. But yeah, the way they're changing the whole, because originally I think it was just Atlantis in the comics and stuff, like Namor was from Atlantis or something.
Yeah, and
like
I think
that.
they were trying to get rid of conflicts
like,
with DC.
Well, like they're definitely going for the more like Mayan Aztec route for Namor and the whole underwater world that they're doing, and I'm really excited for that to see how they do that and what they do. From the trailers, it's looking amazing so far.
Yeah, that trailer made me cry.
It's gonna rival Avatar 2 in the whole underwater scenes. Suck it, James Cameron.
I feel like every interview I have seen as of late with James Cameron, he just seems angry. Like,
well, he's like, why don't people love my movies? And
yeah, well, he's like already being like, people are gonna complain about how long my movie is, and then he like goes on like a whole diatribe about it, and it's like, I just feel like he needs some positivity in his life.
It's been so way too long.
It's been so long.
I want to know how this is going to affect Pandora. Because I'm a theme park dork. So shocking everybody I know.
Yeah.
You're like, what is the next ride going to be?
Well, I mean,
are we gonna do a water ride? What are we doing?
I mean, I think they could take the ride and just change the story on the screen and go underwater with it. I mean, we practically almost go underwater a few times on the ride as it is.
Yeah, you do.
So I could totally see them doing that, which would be, I mean, like we need an excuse to go back to Disney, but it would be just yet another checkbox to go back to Disney.
Jen will be there soon enough.
Tomorrow, right? It's tomorrow.
No.
Is it tomorrow?
No.
Is it Saturday?
I am going to go see family this weekend. And then on Sunday, I'm going to Disney.
Well,
there it is.
This weekend.
I am leaving from my ancestral home. I'm driving down to Orlando and going to Disney World. I'll be there Sunday and Tuesday. Just Postmodern Jukebox is playing. So
that's our Jen.
That's our Jen.
Yeah.
She's having an annual pass and a not terribly long drive to Orlando, okay?
You're halfway there already, so
yeah.
Really, I mean, at that point, I really am.
It's true. So we talked about film. There is one other TV series.
We're not done with film yet.
We're not. What else do we have?
I have 2 more films.
I have a few films.
Okay.
Some more obscure, possibly Oscar bait films. One of the ones I'm looking forward to most is called The Banshees of Inisherin. It's directed by Martin McDonagh, who did In Bruges and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. If you've ever heard of those, he has a really dark sense of humor. And this one, it's got Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, who were both in Bruges. So it's reuniting them with the director, and it just looks like a really good dark comedy. It's basically they play 2 friends who fell apart in recent years, and Colin Farrell's character is trying to reconnect with Brendan Gleeson, but Brendan Gleeson isn't having any of it, and it's just them trying to, I guess, repair their friendship. And it looks really good. It has possible Oscar possibilities, so we'll see that. And then the other one I'm looking forward to is The Menu.
Yes.
That's this dark, slightly comedic thriller horror movie almost. It seems very well. It's got Anya Taylor-Joy. It's got Ralph Fiennes. It's got a really good cast. And it's basically, she goes to this, it's almost like a 3-star Michelin restaurant where, like they have a really fancy dinner menu and they do all these really obscure food preparation stuff. And, everything's over the top, but it gets dark and it devolves into this really weird and terrifying scene for all the dinner patrons. And the restaurant isn't what it seems. If you haven't seen the trailer, go watch it. It looks really intriguing and really cool. And so that's one I'm really looking forward to. That comes out on November 18th. So be on the lookout for that.
That one definitely looked twisted.
Yeah.
And interesting.
Is anyone excited for Weird?
I don't know if I've seen the trailer for
I
Weird.
don't think I've seen the trailer.
What is
The Al
Weird?
Yankovic story?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel Radcliffe.
I mean, we've
Like,
always
yeah.
been calling it the Weird Al movie, and so
Yeah.
The Weird Al
exactly.
movie.
Yes, the Weird Al movie.
But that's November 4th, and I'm very excited.
No, I'm
to
looking
see
forward to that.
It's on the Roku channel. How do we watch the Roku channel?
I don't know.
Some of
I'm
us
just
have Roku.
assuming that
How
they're
do we
gonna have
watch
to
this
put it.
movie?
They're gonna have to put it in theaters for us to see, right? Because like clearly
Maybe.
it has to be award contender. I mean, they've screened it at
Is-
TIFF. They've screened
Yeah.
it like I think they've screened it at other.
No, we didn't scream it. It's
Yeah. But I mean,
but like I don't know
Daniel
how normal
Radcliffe
people
always
see it.
goes hard for every role he does. Like he always fully commits. And from the trailers, it looks
It
awesome.
looks so good. But yeah, like I
So-
don't know how. What's your thoughts, Jen? Jen has thoughts.
no, I just
Jen is
that
laughing.
was saying about how Daniel Radcliffe always goes hard and fully commits, and I was just thinking about him being an Equus and how that might not be a right thing.
Oh,
Well,
you're
that
just
was
thinking
a
about
stage
Daniel
play.
Radcliffe hard, aren't
Sorry
you?
about that.
He's an
Jesus,
impressive
Jen.
male.
I know.
That being said,
Weird Al is not rated NC-17.
it's not.
Sorry, Jen.
I don't know what it is rated, but it is not. It's probably PG-13.
Yeah.
Another one
That
I'm really
looks fun.
looking forward to, which is my last movie I will mention tonight that I'm intrigued by, is The Fablemans.
Oh, the
So-
Fablemans. That's got a lot of good word out
It's
of
got
Venice
good
and
people
Tiff.
in it.
Yeah.
I haven't
Basically
heard
the Steven Spielberg story.
directed by Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, directed by Steven Spielberg too. So
So it's biopic directed by himself. But it is a really good cast, and I love anything that Steven Spielberg does. Like I grew up on his movies, and I was such a huge fan of so much of his work. So
yeah.
fingers crossed, it will be good. I feel like it's going to be a big year for biopics.
I feel it's gonna be good. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that.
I feel like it always is like a big, at least for like the Oscars and stuff, like the leads
Yeah.
are always like people playing real life characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
like a
a
gimme.
lot of boxes for Oscar voting, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jen, Robert, any movies you guys are excited about?
None that we haven't mentioned already, honestly.
No.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that.
We covered the big ones for fall, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
No one's excited for Black Adam.
I'll see it.
Yeah, I mean, if we get a screening, I'll see it.
I cannot wait to see how it changes the hierarchy of power in the DC universe.
I feel like that's kind of all of our like approach to DC now. We're like,
Yeah.
We'll see it.
they have not been fantastically great shepherds of DC universe.
No.
Yeah, they have kind of
No.
a shaky track record.
Yeah,
The Rock will be entertaining.
The Rock
That's
will be
true.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I'll see it for The Rock.
All right, Robert. TV shows, fall. That's where you were going.
Yeah,
We're not
That
done with
aren't going to
film.
depress us. That aren't
Yes.
going to
Aren't gonna
depress us.
depress
Yeah,
you.
Robert.
Happy TV shows. for fall.
Happy streaming. Okay, so anybody who has played Cyberpunk 2077 on PlayStation was a pretty big game release back in 2020 that we had. Why is his name escaping me now? From The Matrix.
Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves came on stage to reveal. So
Oh, yeah, because he's in it too, right?
yeah, he is. And so Netflix decided to do a animated TV series set in the same world to follow a single storyline that sort of like leads into the game called Cyberpunk Edge Runners. And it is incredibly well done, both from animation and storytelling, but also the dubbing that they did and the soundtrack that they've selected for it. And it really comes across as a mix between Blade Runner and Ghost in the Shell. So it is, a dystopian science fiction sort of setup. And essentially the series is 10 episodes long, follows a street kids trying to survive the night city, where technology and body modification is a big thing in the obsessed cyberpunk future. Again, not unlike Blade Runner and Ghost in the Shell. Having lost everything, he stays alive by becoming an edge runner, a mercenary outlaw, also known as a cyberpunk. So I'm 3 episodes in. For any of you that remember the band Franz Ferdinand, they are doing the opening theme song for the series for This Fire Is Out of Control, which is an interesting choice, but works really well for the series. So if you're into that type of film and science fiction, I definitely recommend you go and check that out on Netflix.
Nice.
Got a huge cast lineup on the English cast as well. So if you're a fan of watching animated series, there's a lot of very familiar voice casts, including Giancarlo Esposito, who voices one of the main baddies in the series.
Nice.
He's doing a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah. Well, he did, was it one of the latest Far Cry game? So he's not totally unfamiliar with voice acting roles and stuff like that.
No, definitely not. There's a couple other trailers that dropped for stuff that are not necessarily coming out in the fall. They dropped a teaser for the Percy Jackson Disney Plus series, which is extremely book accurate and is very exciting. And let's see what else.
I'm super excited for the Midnight Club.
I just watched that trailer. That was
interesting. Midnight Society?
October. No. Yeah, it is a horror-based series, but it's October 7th. And it's Mike Flanagan who did the Haunting series. So Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor. So it's him. So anything he does, I am now super excited for, and so I can't wait.
It does feel like a crossing of like Red Band Society. If you watch that on Fox, it feels like that if Mike Flanagan was involved with it. So there will be some serious subject matter, but it is a horror flick.
So know that going into it.
Know that going into it. Like cancer is a theme in it. But to Matt's point, everything he does is so good, and it's so like the storylines have so much depth to them, and it's one of those shows like Bly Manor. I think episode 8 to me is still one of my favorite. I'm pretty sure it's episode 8. It's still one of my favorite things I've ever watched. It was so good.
So Jen, you look like you had a couple of upcoming fall shows you were really interested in.
I've got at least one that I'm super interested in.
Okay.
Coming out on October 26th is Star Wars Tales of the Jedi. Yeah, that's going to be fun. We're going to see some of Count Dooku's backstory and a baby Ahsoka, which I think is going to be absolutely
Baby Ahsoka.
Can't wait.
Count Dooku as an actual Jedi.
Count Dooku as an actual Jedi before he turned. I don't know if this is going to be the story of him turning, or
and it's all animated, right?
Yeah, it's animated, very similar style to Clone Wars and Rebels. So really looking forward to that. A little closer to Christmas is going to be the Santa Clauses. It's in November, which is a series follow-up to the Tim Allen Santa Claus movies. And they are bringing back, oh my God, I've already forgot his name.
Chief Elf. Bernard.
Yes. Bernard. They're bringing back Bernard.
Well, oh my God, what's speaking of Santa Claus, what's there's a new David Harbour. He's playing Santa in a movie.
Oh, what is that?
Oh my God. I'm Googling it right now.
I know.
Please hold.
Well, so the other thing I'm excited about coming out is a movie drop. Again, getting into winter since like November is Disenchanted. So
it's called Violent Night.
Oh.
And David Harbour is Santa.
That's
okay.
Like the movie poster alone is they've
just released a poster. That's all we've seen so far is just a poster for it. Like there hasn't been a trailer. But I mean, him as Santa, I'm already sold. And it's called Violent Night. Like that's all I need.
Yeah.
I don't expect it to win any awards, but it'll win my heart.
I'd be surprised.
I mean, I'm not the kind of person where every film I have to see has to be award winning. Sometimes I just want something funny, something scary, something to just be mind numbing, or whatever the thing is.
We still need to get confirmation of whether or not he was in Bullet Train.
Yes, because I feel like he was.
I mean, it's possible.
It looked like him. I don't know. I stand by it. We'll figure it out. There's a lot of good stuff coming this fall, though. As far as like actual award contenders, I feel like that's still kind of because I feel like a lot of the stuff we're excited about isn't necessarily award contenders.
I mean, the Fabelmans is definitely an award contender. That's gonna be high on the list
for sure.
I don't know.
Hocus Pocus 2 sadly is probably not going to win any Oscars.
I don't think that's
not playing in theaters. It's not possible.
It's going straight to Disney Plus.
Yeah. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to love it.
It's going to win our hearts.
The trailers that I have already seen have been brilliant and everything I wanted them to be. So
I'm just happy that Doug Jones is back. Yep.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
That's all we need.
We're happy that Doug Jones is back.
I'm excited.
All right. Well, I will wrap things up for us. I will say we are going to be 3 weeks before our next episode. So hopefully everyone here can make that. I say that because Matt, Robert, and myself are headed to Vegas at a very uncomfortably early hour on October 7th. So we are not going to do a podcast on the 6th. October 6th.
Especially because we would have been at an event on the 6th as well, which we can't make. And it's sad.
Matt is going to it. So.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
If anyone has a ticket, they can't.
Because my
your
flight isn't as early as your guys's.
This is true.
Yeah. We have to get up at like 4 a.m. for our flight. So
wait, I don't have to be there at 4 a.m. to start Fozzie sitting, do I?
You do not have to be at 4 a.m.
Where is Fozzie and where is Doug bringing you your drink?
Right? Doug's falling down.
Doug, so this is good. This skipping an episode thing is going to put his D&D schedule and my Nerd Herd live schedule on opposite Thursdays, so he can make more of an appearance to bring me refills. And other things, I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
But he is playing his first new D&D game tonight since they wrapped up their last D&D game right before Dragon Con. So he is doing that tonight, and Fozzie is probably right outside the door staring at him because that's what she does when he plays D&D. But
not right outside the door listening to us?
No.
Come on, Fozzie.
She's very loyal to me in the mornings, and she's very loyal to him at night. So she splits her time evenly. It is a timeshare. But that being said, we'll be back on October 13th. That's the right date, right? Yes, 13th.
Yep. Something like that,
We have some really cool stuff that next week that I hope that we'll have something more we can talk about. Stranger Things Experience is launching in Atlanta the next week, as is the Harry Potter Experience. One of those for sure is going to have press days. Not sure about the other. I also believe Netherworld is supposed to have a press day. So hopefully we're going to have some cool like fall things to
Halloween
talk about.
content.
Halloween
Scary stuff.
Scary stuff. I don't know what our theme is going to be yet. We'll figure it out. Maybe it'll be scary stuff. We'll talk about like Hocus Pocus.
We'll figure that out on the 12th.
We'll figure it out on the 12th.
We will.
We're great planners.
I mean, keeping with that 2-week schedule, the next podcast after that's going to be the 27th. So that's right up on Halloween. Maybe that should be our spooky day.
That should be our spooky day. That's a good plan.
We'll figure it out and let everybody know.
We will.
Stay tuned.
We will totally plan ahead.
We will.
Yep.
We've never done that before, but we might start.
You might be surprised. Follow us on Nerd Herd Live on Instagram and the Nerd Herd Live on Twitter. And hopefully we will tweet out what we're going to be talking about.
Hopefully
before we talk about. Either way.
Either way, follow us.
Follow us.
I love the confidence of our closing.
I know. We're brilliant. We're on the ball. I mean,
we are very much on the ball.
We know what we're doing.
I don't, but I'm glad that you guys do.
Everybody blame Emma.
So much for tuning in tonight. Please blame me for things that go wrong. That is the theme here.
This is the way.
But this is the way. Which also would be a part of our winter tease, because Mandalorian season 3, February 2023. That will be coming. We can officially tease that will be in a future episode. Yeah. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. We really appreciate it. Please feel free to leave us comments about things that you would like us to talk about, things that you have strong feelings about. Like, let's make it a conversation. That being said, you can follow me on Fanbolt or at Emma Loggins, again, on all platforms except for TikTok. Matt, that way. throw it to you.
You can follow, I'm with Shakefire. I'm Shakefire on all social media channels. And then on Twitter, I'm Matt Rodriguez. And on Instagram, it's Matthew M. Rodriguez. Jen?
I am on both Instagram and Twitter as Renlark, RENNLARK. And that's where you can find me. Robert?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Robert W. Prentice, and you can find my site, 3F by Space, at 3F by Space on all major platforms.
All right. Well, that's it from us tonight.
So we got.
That's all we got. 1 hour and 30 minutes in. So, thank you guys again for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you
later.
Bye. Baby.